Now we're going to start another speech by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. If you remember last time we learned, we finished one speech of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Usually we do in this time, we do what's called the Davar Malchut, speeches that the Rebbe gave in 1991, 1992, which they talk very, very specifically and deeply about Moshiach. But it ends up that the one that he gave this week was talking about certain things that happened in that week, which aren't relevant to us now. Exactly, it was Rosh Chodesh, it was Parshas Chodesh. Okay, so we're learning speeches given by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe has, I think, 45 books of just speeches that were given out, amazing speeches. Okay, so we just finished learning one of them. What is it about the commandments of the sacrifices that gives God pleasure? Remember we talked about that? That's what we talked about the last 3 days. And it ended up that what we were saying was that what gives God pleasure is that we do what God says without any reason and without even without any spiritual reason, just because God said it. Just because God said, Amarti v'naseh ratzoni, God said it, and there's no reason behind it, and we do it, and we're not looking for any reason. The only reason we're doing it is because God said it. That total surrender to God, that's what gives God pleasure. That's what we learned last 3 days. Now we're going to start something new. Now we're going to start something new. Let's see how this goes. We're here. 1 minute. 1 minute. 14. Here we go. Yes. Okay. This week's Torah portion begins with the word Vayikra. Vayikra. And the Aleph is written small. If you look in the Torah, the word Vayikra, the Aleph, is written with a small Aleph. Can I give you a picture of that? Here, let's see. Here. I think it's here. Can I have you a picture of this? Here, see? Let's see if I can get this over here. See the Aleph? By me, it's coming backwards. Here's the first word. See, everything is backwards over here. So I move it to the right. It goes to the left. Anyway, here it is. Vayikra El Moshe. See, there's a little Aleph written here. Vayikra. By me, it's coming out like mirror image. But anyway, this is the Aleph. Vayikra. See, there's a little Aleph here. See? It's the Aleph. So it's written with a little Aleph. So what's the purpose of this little Aleph? Why does it have to be written in the Torah? Now, maybe you might say, and you could be justified in saying that, listen, what do you mean, what's the purpose? God just does whatever he wants to, and that God just decided that's the way he wants to write it. Says, yes, that's true. But the word Torah means teaching. So everything that we can learn from the Torah, it's an obligation to learn. We just finished learning that the sacrifices have no meaning to them. What does it mean they have no meaning? It doesn't mean that that we can't derive a meaning from them. It means that there's no known meaning to them. Even God doesn't know the meaning, but certainly there's implications to the sacrifices. There's difference between them. The same. So everything from the Torah that there is, we have to learn a message in life. Okay. Der Rebbe had a mal detzelt. The Rebbe once said, this is the Rebbe talking about his father-in-law. Now, this what we're reading now, this is a speech given by the Rebbe in 1966. Okay, here we go. The Rebbe had a mal detzelt. The Rebbe once said, in a Hasidic, what's called a Farbringen, in Passover, Pesach, their Seder they said that the way things were done, the order of things was that the how the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe, taught. He's in this Farbrengen. The previous Rebbe told about how the first Rebbe of Chabad, the one who wrote the Torah, how he educated his grandson. His grandson became the third Rebbe of Chabad, the son of his daughter. And how he brought him, how do you say, how he began his education in Cheder. Cheder is the teaching, the first teachings of Jewish children. Torah is called the Cheder. The word Cheder means the room. But especially the Zachar, among the things which the Rebbe had told, it's said about how the first Rebbe of Chabad educated his grandson. Why did the first Rebbe educate his grandson? The first Rebbe of Chabad had a lot of enemies. Religious people, like King David, had enemies, and they wanted to kill him. And in order to, they didn't want to do it themselves, so they slandered him to the Russian government that he was planning to make a revolution. And they even forged papers to that effect, and he was arrested and put into prison. And even though he was not officially sentenced to death, but it was impending. The sentence was like any minute now. So first of all, they interrogated him. Okay, but before that, the first Rebbe of Chabad, before that, the Rebbe sensed that something bad was about to happen. Now, if the Rebbe would have been imprisoned, then that would have more or less put an end to the whole Chabad movement, and we wouldn't have had this whole awakening of Jews like we do now. I mean, I'm sure God would have provided some other way, but we have to do everything we can. We see how King David cried out to God, please save me. So the first Rebbe of Chabad, his daughter, realized the impending danger. This is before they came to arrest him. And she went to rabbis and she said, I want to exchange my life for my father's life. It's a long story, but it ended up that the rabbis didn't want to do it. And anyway, she said, but on the condition that my father brings up my child, that he educates and he's the one that brings up my child. Her child was the Tzemach Tzedek, and he became the third Rebbe of Chabad. So the way it went in Chabad was the first Rebbe, he was the first leader. The second Rebbe was the son of the first Rebbe, but the third Rebbe was not the son of the second Rebbe. The third Rebbe was the son of the first Rebbe's daughter. And that's what someone said. So how did the first Rebbe of Chabad educate his grandson? As the first Rebbe of Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, he told the teacher, learning that he should learn with the child, first of all, begin learning Vayikra. That's the first thing you should learn. Don't learn about the creation of the world. Don't start learning the Torah. This is the child was only 3 years old, right? Maybe he was even younger at the time, could be. He said, he took a teacher and he said, I want you to start to learn. What's going to teach him Aleph Beit, right? How to read. He already knows how to read. Now you're going to start to teach him Vayikra. The Torah. Why don't you start from the beginning of the Torah? I want you to start with Vayikra. Nochdem, after that, when the teacher started to teach the child with the child, and so the child, the Rebbe of Chabad, he went to his grandfather and he asked him a question. Why is the word Vayikra written with a small aleph? Okay, now listen to this answer. The Rebbe had sich for the Rebbe thought for a while. And afterwards, as he said, Adam Arishon, the first man that was created, is given Yetzer Kapav Shel Kodesh Baruch Hu. He was created by God. Right? The first man didn't have a mother and a father. He Who created man? God created man. When man was created, it says he was like 20 years old. That if you would have brought a doctor to see what was the age, approximate age of Adam 1 instant after he was born, the doctor would say he's 20 years old. Man was created by God. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu and God is Me'ir Alav, and God testified on the first man that his wisdom was greater than the wisdom of the angels. It says that God brought all the animals in front of man. Man was the last thing to be created. And God said to man, can you call the names of these, and tell me what the names of these animals are? And Adam gave names to all the animals. How did he give names? Because he knew what their spiritual source was and which letters there were to create them. So man knew their source. Previously, God had told the angels to try to do the same thing, because the angels said, don't create man. He's going to do sins. And God said, his wisdom is greater than yours. Look, I created all these animals, right? What are the names of the animals? The angels said, you know what? We don't know what the names are. So watch this. Said to man, what are the names of the animals? And God gave names to the animals. So he says, Adam Rishon had gavust, he knew how high he was. Adam knew how great he was. Und hat sich mit dem bei sich allein übergenommen, übergenommen. And by this, he had confidence. Is durchgefallen, but this confidence was too much, and because of this, as he fell in the sin of the tree of knowledge. Man, Moses though, hat euch gewusst, knew about how great he was. Is not only which Moses had not übergenommen, Moses did not become overconfident by himself, by this, Adarab, exactly the opposite, thus hat ihm gemacht, that made him to have a broken heart. Why was he a broken heart? Moses knew he was better than everybody else. Why? Was is given shefel, he became humble. In his eyes. Why? Why was he humble? Because he didn't compare himself to other people. He compared himself with God. Trachendik, when he thought, as an under id, and if God would have given the same gifts that he gave to me, to another Jew, is nit Amram Zazun, if it would have given it to another Jew, not Amram. Moses was the son of Amram. Moses ben Amram. Amram was the leader of the generation. It says, I am the son of the leader of the generation. Unit Avram Avinu's Ador Shvi, and not the seventh from Abraham. Moses, he enumerated his great qualities, his own great qualities. I am the son of Amram, who was the greatest Jew in the generation, Amram. And I am in this generation that we're in is the greatest generation of Judaism. I'm the seventh generation from Abraham. He had such a great and high soul and such a merit of his fathers, as if God would have given these same talents to someone else and these same qualities and qualifications to somebody else, is what jener sicher gewinnt besser from is, then he would be better than me. And that's what God said in the Torah. It says in the Torah, Ha'ish Moshe Anav Me'od, that Moses was more humble than any person in the world. From yet an Adam, from every single human being in the world, which there is, every human being, Moses was wie klein and pashut, no matter how low this person is, even a non-Jew. Had sich Moshe Rabbeinu mit him, for Moses measured himself corresponding to every other person, and he came to the conclusion, as jener Welt gehat, seine Geschenke, if he would have been given his qualities, nit verdinte biagiat atzmo, things that he did not earn by his own efforts, right? Moses said, I've been given an IQ of who knows 1,000,000, and my heart came from my father. He's a righteous, holy person, and I'm the seventh generation from Abraham. I have all these free gifts that God gave me, right? If God would have given these same free gifts to someone else, then someone else might have done better than me. I have such a high soul, and I have the merit of my forefathers, as Voldyena, the other person, would have been better than me. In the Tamunot Otiot, so therefore in the forms of the letters that God had given on Mount Sinai, there are three types of letters written in the Torah. Letters. There are big letters, Osim Ravavim. There are medium-sized letters, and there are small letters. The Torah is Geshrib, and the Torah is written with small letters. I'm sorry. The Torah is written, with medium-sized letters. Why the Torah is written with medium-sized letters? The kavanah, the intention is that a person has to be, how do you say, balanced. A Benoni. You're supposed to be what's called average, not to do any bad. Not to do any bad, but also you're not going to be perfect. So you're in the middle. Is Durach Torah, by means of Torah, you can come to a level of being what's called a Benoni. A Benoni, an average Jew. What's an average Jew? What does it mean, an average Jew? What does it mean, an average Jew, right? So yeah, let's say an average automobile, a car. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I just... What's an average car? An average car, it can drive on the street. It has four wheels and it drives, right? But let's compare an average car to a person that's walking, right? Average car can go much faster than a person that walks, and it can go can carry things which are much heavier than a person. You can take passengers with it. It's a totally different thing. Both of them are certain types of vehicles, but they're not, right? Okay. So a Jew, if you compare a Jew to a non-Jew, so it's something like a car. I'm comparing a car to a person who's walking. I'm making this up, right? So you can unmake it also. I don't know how. What I'm trying to say is a Jew is a person that's connected to God. Is connected to God. Just like a normal person doesn't have wheels and he doesn't have an engine, right? And he can't go 50 miles an hour. An average car can go 50 miles an hour, and it has. So what is an average Jew? So the Hasidut Chabad is this book written by the first Rebbe of Chabad, is called the Tanya. And the Tanya explains what is an average Jew. What is an average Jew? What's he supposed to be? Right? An average Jew is a Jew that he's not totally consumed with godliness all the time and he loves God. That's like a big Jew, if you want to call it. That's like a tzaddik. On the other hand, an average Jew is not a person that acts normally like everybody else. He does what he wants, he thinks what he wants, he says what he wants. Like a normal person. Jews are not normal people. Jews are not normal people, right? If your car is stuck on the side of the road and it doesn't work, you say, listen, can you give me a push? What should I give you a push for? Why? What should I give you a push? You're in a car, right? You sit in your car, but a car has to move. It has to be moving. You want to move it like a person. So you get out and you push, right? You get out, you move it. You move it. A car is not like a person. A car can move faster. Same thing, a Jew. A Jew is like a different dimension of movement to as far as reality goes. That's what a Jew is supposed to be. And that's what the Tanya explains us. So the Torah enables a person to be an average Jew, a Jew to be a Jew. Adam Arishon, the first Jew, was Durach because he recognized how great he was and how amazing he was, as he was a big Aleph, but he fell in a sin. The Adam is written with a big Aleph. If you look in the book of Chronicles, it begins with the chronicles of the world. It starts with Adam, and then Adam's son, Shet, and then this. So it says with the Adam over there is written with a big Aleph. Adam was a big tzaddik, he was a big Jew, but he realized that he took it to himself. He became an egotist, and he fell. Moses was durach them, which is also, he was very big, but Moses, he looked and he considered himself to be in some ways lower than even the lowest person. Is Erzugakum, he came to the Hechster Darga, he came to the highest level of what's called humility. As it says, Vayikra with an aleph, a small aleph. Moses, he really felt that he was inferior to everybody else. Why inferior? Why? Because he knew he had tremendous talents and he knew how great he was, etc. But he also knew that what did he do with these talents? And he said, if God would have given these talents to someone else, it's a big probability that they would have done more than me. Could be. And that made him very humble. Therefore, Moses said, if Adam could have made a mistake with his greatness, for sure I can make a mistake with my greatness. And therefore, he was very humble. And he didn't do anything that God didn't tell him to do. Okay, so what's the question of the third Rebbe of Chabad when he was a child? Why is the word Vayikra? It says that God called to Moses, Vayikra, a small aleph, because Moses was humble. And why was he humble? Precisely because he was so great and so talented. So he was very worried that with his talents, he might not use them to their full capacity. And therefore, he was very humble and he was very wary and afraid of his own misjudgment. Maybe I'll use all these talents in a wrong way. So therefore, he was always surrendered to God, praying to God, God, may I only do the right thing, the proper thing. Story. That's what happened. A story that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe told about the first Rebbe, how the first Rebbe of Chabad educated his grandson. Right? His grandson asked, why is there a small aleph? And his father answered, because Adam was a great person, but he misused his greatness. And Moses was a great person, but he was very humble because he didn't want to misuse his greatness. Nice story. In Dem Sipur, in this story, is at first glance something that's really not understood. For Vos hat the Alter Rebbe, why did the first Rebbe have to say this whole entire long story about how first man, Adam, how he was very great, and therefore he had a big aleph, and therefore he made big mistakes. And then, but Moses, he was very humble, and he had the letter, therefore, because of the letter aleph, and therefore he was humble. So his aleph that he had was small. The aleph of Adam was big. Why does he have to talk about Adam? Why did he have to talk about Adam? Is an aleph zera that because Adam was big and he had a big aleph, so therefore Moses had a small aleph. What did he have to tell the story about Adam for? Is l'chiora nit nogea? It's not relevant what happened to the big aleph of Adam. That Adam, the first man, as his genuga would have been just sufficient just to say that the reason that Moses had a small aleph was because that Moses was humble. Nachmer, even more. The explanation we had that the aleph, the small aleph of a Vayikra, as this is a remez, this is the hint on the humility of Moses. This says it in a lot of places in the Torah. It's not made up by the first Rebbe of Chabad. Wasn't the original discover of this meaning of the Torah. A lot of other people say the same thing. The letter aleph, it shows how humble Moses is. This is not an original idea of the first Rebbe of Chabad. And they don't say anything about the greatness of Adam and how Adam was great, and because of that he fell down. Is this Allah has come much more so in our case when the Tzemach Tzedek was he was a small child and he had not learned Torah yet, and for sure he did not get up to the book of Chronicles. He didn't learn anything about the first letter of Chronicles is an aleph in the name of Adam, which is big. He didn't know that. It only says in Chronicles. Erst I'm going to learn Torah Chumash. He just now is beginning to learn the Chumash. What happened? That Tzemach Tzedek was a young boy. Let's say he was 3 years old. He came home to his father and he said, "Hey, how was school? Wonderful. School was wonderful. The first day I was learning. Why is the Aleph in Vayikra small? Why? First question he asked about the Torah. What does his father tell him? There's another book which is called Chronicles. That's in the end of the Torah, and he didn't start to read that book yet. And over there, if you look, you'll see that the Aleph is written big, and that's the name of Adam because Adam was big, but he misused it. And so you don't know what did he have to tell the whole story about Chronicles? The child didn't learn about Chronicles yet. A small child, there was no reason for him to bring this whole topic, the whole negative topic about Adam. And especially that there's a big Aleph somewhere else in the Torah and there's a small one. And especially that the explanation of the first Rebbe of Chabad about the big letter in Aleph, this is the opposite of good. Why did he have to tell his grandson a negative thing? His grandson, what did the first Rebbe of Chabad say to the teacher? Don't start the Torah with the creation of the world. Don't start learning with my grandson about the creation of the world. Don't start with Bereshit. Start with Vayikra, sacrifices. So if so, the Tzemach Tzedek didn't even know the story about Adam, or at least they didn't learn it. Is Madach, why do you have to talk about bad things? They didn't know about this bad thing. Is Madach Baganot Be'ima Tameya, if about an impure animal, the Torah didn't say anything. It says that when the Torah talks about Behema Tameya, it doesn't use the word Tameya. It used the word Lo Tahor. Right? It doesn't use the word Behema Tameya. It says Behema Lo Tahora. It uses extra letters in the Torah to try to avoid saying a negative name. A negative name. So here is a child, comes home from his first day of learning. He wants to know why is the Aleph small. Tell him a positive thing, simply, because Moses was humble. What are you telling a small child that he doesn't know what's written in the Torah yet? Because Adam was created first, and he had a big letter, and he was an egotist, and he did a sin. And Moses, he didn't do a sin. Why do you have to tell the whole story about Adam? About it, did a sin? How much more so when it's regarding, if you don't say a bad thing even about an animal, why say bad things about a human being? And even what type of a human being? A human being that was created directly by God. Adam Arishon, the first man. You're telling a little child that goes to school, the first thing you tell him is that Adam was created by God and he was very great and he sinned. Why tell a little child a thing like that? But Moses not. Moses had the same qualities, but he didn't sin. He was humble. And therefore, just tell him that part. Why? As we will find out more, God willing, tomorrow. Says the Rebbe. Also, we have to understand why the whole long thing. Why did it take so long? Why did the first Rebbe of Chabad, why did he explain to his grandson in such a long story, right? His son said, why is it small? Say, because Moses was humble. Look in the other, look at the Ramban. That's what he says. Look at other people. Other commentaries on the Torah, they say the same thing. Moses was humble, so he had a small Aleph, that's all. He had to tell a negative story and a long story to this child. Why? We'll find out that and much more tomorrow.